Hi, and welcome to Life, Death, and the Space Between podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Amy Robbins. I'm a clinical psychologist and medium, and here we explore life, death, consciousness, and what it all means. Today on the show, I actually have another ghost story. So if you haven't listened to Laura's ghost story, it was a couple months back. A friend of Laura's actually reached out because their fathers, it seems, may have worked to try to connect the two of them. Here's Emily's story. My father was a smart man and a silly one. He was a true kid at heart. He was also a musician, skilled at the guitar, piano, and singing. Music was a big part of his life, and he made it a big part of mine. He was the one that taught me my first guitar lessons and took me to piano class. I even shared the competition stage with him when I was part of a Polynesian dance production company. He was the guitarist, and it was an honor to perform with him. In mid-2014, it was a complete shock to everyone when he was diagnosed with dementia and early onset Alzheimer's. He also had a brief history of kidney failure after his diagnosis. Earlier in January of this year, he suffered a second heart attack and developed an aggressive form of pneumonia. He spent about 3 weeks of being on life support ventilator machine and went through several dialysis sessions, which ultimately failed due to a ruptured fistula. My father showed signs of 3 major organ failures: the heart, the kidneys, and the brain. He passed away on January 26, 2019. Losing a loved one is a hurt that is unimaginable, and it was difficult to imagine my life without my father. I constantly asked myself, how could I continue living a regular life? I had only danced with my father at my wedding 3 months before in late October 2018, and now he was gone. How could that be? Dancing with my father on that day was one of the most unforgettable and special moments of my life, because although he was beginning to forget people, places, and things, he knew almost every word to the song we danced to, Sunrise, Sunset, from the 1960s musical Fiddler on the Roof. The part of the brain that recognizes and is associated with music is the part that does not get affected in a dementia Alzheimer's patient. And my father was a testament to that. It was still very much a big part of his life. And throughout the wedding planning process, I was deciding between that and another song. And at the last moment, I consulted with my mother, and she said, "Go with Sunrise, Sunset. He loves that one." The song is sung by the movie's main character, Tevye, a father singing about how his daughters have grown so fast, set during one of his daughter's weddings. My dad sung and danced his heart out, swaying and spinning me around, and I cried in his arms. I continued on with a heavy and broken heart as best I could, and took time off to be with family after my father's passing. After several weeks, I even tried to focus my energy on work, even though I'd come home sad and almost inconsolable. In February, Laura came on board, and I figured the best way I could help ease myself through this grieving process was to put my best foot forward in my work and welcome her. I found Laura to be picking up quickly on aspects of the job, and she also tells me of challenging days so we could work through it together. We built our own little support system. On one particularly challenging day, Laura wrote me in an email, "Thanks for all your help today. It hasn't been the best day, and you being so nice and helpful makes a big difference. Aside from everything being new and trying to learn the ropes, my father passed away back in December, and emotionally I've been struggling. The pain comes and goes, and it has not been easy. Again, I very much appreciate your kindness. Laura F." It was hard to believe that she was going through the exact same thing I was, and she had only lost her father about a month before I did. I picked up the phone immediately and called her, letting her know I was going through the same sadness and grief. I tried to distract myself from sorrow by working, but I felt like my life had led me right to her. We work in separate offices, so I was looking forward to meeting her. When I finally did, we were in the break room having coffee, getting to know each other, swapping stories, and showing pictures of our fathers. I came across a picture in my phone of me and my father dancing during my wedding, and the memories flooded right before me. I showed Laura and told her my father loved Fiddler on the Roof, and that's why we decided to dance to Sunrise Sunset. And Laura stood up absolutely floored. Her eyes were welling up with tears, and she paced the room. "That's so crazy that you would even mention that," she said, still pacing. My family has always said that my father looked like Tevye." She showed me earlier pictures of her father, Eugene, and his resemblance to the musical's main character is impeccable. The dark wavy hair, the full beard, the build, all he needed was a messenger's hat. I thought the connection was so different because as good of a film as Fiddler on the Roof is, regardless, it's still from the 60s and not as common or mainstream nowadays as, say, Cats or Phantom of the Opera. We continued to learn that we were both one of 4 sisters, our fathers both had German shepherds, and were both engineers, thus very intelligent in mathematics, which is why they were hard on their girls in academics, much to our dismay. Ever since our Fiddler on the Roof connection, Laura and I continued to see signs from our fathers and would always share them with one another. I told Laura one of my dad's favorite snacks was chili cheese Fritos, and she sent me a picture of an abandoned shopping cart with the only item inside being chili cheese Fritos in a store, and those same kinds of Fritos being served as a snack on a recent sailing trip she was on. I always see a copy of Fiddler on the Roof misspelled in a record store and let her know. These signs felt like messages from our fathers, letting me know that Laura and I and our families were going to be okay, and that they were okay too. People come into our lives and things happen for a reason, and since our connection, I have truly felt like Laura and I were meant to be friends and connectors for each other to our fathers. Some days are harder than most. We call it our dad days when we're especially missing our fathers. But we remember that they are still with us in many ways. They show us even if they're not physically here. I have been more open to the world sending me signs, and I honestly believe my heart has been mended a little bit more since meeting Laura. I thank the universe and her father for sending her to me. She is a beautiful person and a kind friend, and I know that just from listening to her stories, her father raised her to be that way. Thank you so much to Emily and to Laura for sharing your stories. And if you're interested in having your ghost story read on this podcast, please send me an email at dramyrobbins@gmail.com or reach out to me on Instagram so we can get connected at Dr. Amy Robbins. Thank you so much for listening.